At first, it was just a line of ants. Nothing special. Just tiny bodies marching across the dirt like they've done for millions of years. But as I kept filming, things changed. Suddenly, the marching turned into maneuvering. The lines broke apart and regrouped. With tactics, one side circled, another side flanked. I thought I was seeing things, until they started dragging the wounded. Yes, dragging the wounded. I wasn't just filming ants. I was filming a war. And just when I thought it couldn't get any stranger, I saw something move in the background. It wasn't an ant. It didn't belong there. It just stood still, watching, like it was waiting. I zoomed in, and what I captured, I'm still not sure how to explain it. But I do know this. Once you see it, you'll never look at ants the same way again. It started like any other quiet afternoon. No explosions. No thunder. Just the sound of wind brushing through the trees and a soft buzzing of insects in the summer heat. I had just unboxed my new macro lens, excited to try it out on something. Anything. And as luck would have it, there was a small ant trail near the back fence. Nothing special. Just ants doing what ants do, right? Or so I thought. I knelt down, focused the lens, and hit record. What I was expecting, a couple of clips of ants carrying crumbs and leaves. Maybe a time-lapse of a food line. Something chill. Something educational. But what I captured looked like a coordinated military campaign. At first, it was subtle. Two distinct lines of ants, marching toward each other. Not in a messy, chaotic scatter, but with purpose. Their movements were almost rhythmic, like formations. One group had darker, reddish-brown bodies, while the other was pitch black. And where they met, there was tension. Ants pausing, circling, antennae flaring. Still, I told myself, maybe it's just territory negotiation. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But then, it began. The reddish ants lunged first. In a synchronized motion, they broke rank and swarmed. The black ants didn't scatter. They countered, flanked them. Some climbed trees and attacked from above. Others dug under leaves to cut off escape routes. These weren't random bites and scrambles. These were tactics. Like watching two armies who knew exactly how to break each other's lines. I zoomed in. Ants were wrestling. Not just pushing or biting, wrestling like gladiators. Some dragged opponents away, others attacked in groups of 3 or more. Bodies started piling up. Ants carried the wounded. Yes, carried them. To the edge of the battle line. I swear to you, there was one ant that seemed to check on each injured one before turning back to the fight. A medic? How is that even possible? At this point, I stopped filming for a second, just to Google. Do ants have war? Turns out, they do. But what I was seeing wasn't just instinct or chemical chaos. This felt organized, planned, intentional, and it was escalating fast. They fought across terrain like soldiers navigating trenches, ducking beneath bark, using twigs as cover. Some ants even used leaf debris as barricades. I watched, stunned, as one red ant climbed onto a pebble, raised its body high, and emitted some kind of signal. Seconds later, a wave of reinforcements charged in from the brush. Now here's the part that really threw me. About 10 minutes in, a small group of ants from both sides just froze. Not because they were injured. They just stopped moving, as if listening. Then slowly, almost reverently, they began dragging bodies to the side and forming a pile. A mass grave? This wasn't chaos anymore. This was ceremony. I stood there, crouched, barely breathing. I could feel my heart beating faster than I expected. Why? Because this wasn't nature being random. This was something else. But then, as I was panning the lens to follow another attack group, I saw something in the background. Out of focus. Still. Larger than the ants. I paused. Refocused. Nothing. I looked up from the viewfinder. Still nothing. But my gut. It told me I'd just missed something watching. I shook it off. Maybe a trick of the light. Maybe my brain trying to turn shadows into meaning. So I zoomed back in. The fight was slowing now. Fewer clashes, more retreating. The black ants began pulling back, methodically. No panic. Just withdrawal. The reds didn't chase. Instead, they regrouped, cleaned, reorganized, like a unit being prepped for the next mission. I kept filming for a few more minutes until my battery gave out. I sat there in silence, the air oddly still. No wind, no bird sounds, just that gut feeling again. Something was off. Later that night, I reviewed the footage frame by frame, zoomed, enhanced, and there it was. At exactly 17 minutes and 24 seconds, in the blurry corner of one frame. A flash of something not ant. 6 legs, yes. But longer, leaner. Reflective eyes. And completely still. Except for one thing. It was facing the battle the entire time. Like it was watching. Studying. Maybe? Orchestrating? Whatever it wasn't part of the war. But it wasn't separate from it either. And that's when the question hit me. What if the ants weren't just fighting each other? What if they were following orders? So there I was, camera in hand, rewatching the footage I had just captured. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of ants engaging in combat, moving like soldiers, executing flanking maneuvers, protecting the injured, forming retreat lines. It was already enough to send shivers down my spine. But now, I had something else to think about. That thing. That shadowy, 6-legged figure in the background. Still, observing, clearly, not part of either army. What the hell was it? I zoomed in frame by frame, trying to sharpen the image, but the resolution was too soft. Still, there was no denying it. It wasn't an ant. It wasn't a beetle either. Its limbs were too long, its body too rigid. And most disturbing of all, it never moved. Not even once. Except for its head, which slowly turned to follow the ants as they fought. I sat back and actually laughed out loud. Not out of amusement, but disbelief. Was I really entertaining the idea that some insect was watching an ant war? But the footage didn't lie. And once I went down that rabbit hole, things got weird. Like, really weird. Here's something you probably didn't know. Ants don't just... They communicate. Through chemical signals called pheromones, ants can coordinate entire colonies. And I'm not talking about a few dozen insects. I'm talking hundreds of thousands, even millions, all acting with incredible precision. They can send out scouts to find food. If that scout finds something useful, it leaves behind a trail. Others follow. If they encounter danger, they can send out an alarm signal that causes the whole colony to shift gears. But what I saw, it wasn't just response behavior. It looked like strategic command. One group of ants ambushed from the high ground. Another tunneled below, cutting off retreat. Some were stationed on the flanks, watching, waiting, and only joining in when the timing was right. I did more research, and here's where it gets strangely human. In 2007, scientists discovered that certain species of ants, like Eciton burchellii, the infamous army ant, use temporary battle formations, almost like Roman legions. They create living walls. They reroute troops based on the flow of conflict. Some even protect high-ranking members of the colony like living bodyguards. Yeah, ants have rank. And here's where things get darker. There are documented cases of slaver ants. Species that invade neighboring colonies, kill the adults, and kidnap the larvae. They bring them back home and raise them as servants. Literal biological brainwashing. This isn't just evolution. This is warfare. And the craziest part? Sometimes, ants don't even know who's pulling the strings. Let me explain. There's a fungus called Ophiocordyceps unilateralis. Some people call it the zombie ant fungus. It infects a single ant, takes over its central nervous system, and makes it climb to a perfect location before killing it and sprouting out of its head. But here's the catch. The fungus doesn't just control one ant. It manipulates entire behavior chains. When one ant is infected, others may unknowingly protect it, carry it, or die defending it. All while the fungus spreads from within. It's not just parasites either. Some researchers believe electromagnetic sensitivity allows ants to orient based on subtle changes in the Earth's field, and that they may be susceptible to external manipulation by unseen forces. Vibrations, frequencies, even light patterns. It's speculative, sure, but after what I filmed, it didn't sound as crazy as it used to. Because now I had to ask, was the war I filmed just a territorial fight? Or was it being influenced? And if so, by what? I went back to the footage again. This time, I noticed something I missed the first time. Every time the ants shifted tactics, retreated, regrouped, formed new lines, the watcher in the background would move slightly. Not fast, not erratic, just enough to suggest it wasn't random. Maybe it was coincidence. But if it wasn't, then I had to face a much stranger question. Was something else orchestrating this war from the shadows? I know how this sounds. Like I've been watching too many sci-fi movies or reading too many Reddit threads. But when you film something that shouldn't be happening, something that feels too calculated to be nature, but too natural to be human-made, your brain goes places. And mine did. Was I watching a lone predator? An invasive species? Or something even rarer? An insect that directs rather than participates? There are insects that mimic others to infiltrate colonies. The Myrmecophil beetle, for example, disguises itself chemically to live inside ant colonies undetected. They don't just live there. They feed off the resources and even manipulate behavior. But this wasn't mimicry. This was leadership. And if that's true, if some higher order insect was commanding an army of ants like pawns on a battlefield, then I hadn't filmed a skirmish. I had filmed a military operation. And just when I thought it couldn't go deeper, I realized something chilling. The ants weren't afraid of it. They weren't avoiding it. They were reporting to it. I didn't sleep much that night. My camera footage was still open on my desktop, paused at that blurry figure. I kept telling myself it had to be a beetle or a cricket or some other harmless bug caught in the background. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. This thing had presence. That kind of eerie stillness that doesn't belong in a normal scene. Like when you're walking alone and suddenly feel someone behind you, not because you see them, but because your body knows. And the worst part? Every time I pressed play, it felt like it was watching me back. I needed to know more. So the next morning, I went back to the site. Same patch of dirt, same trail, But now, it was quiet. Not peaceful, vacant. The kind of quiet that feels deliberate. No ants. No movement. No signs of war. Just a few bodies dried and half buried beneath the soil. One twig snapped in half. A single leaf overturned. That was it. The battlefield had been erased. Like it never happened. I took out the camera again. Tried filming. Nothing. I even placed a few breadcrumbs near the spot to lure them out. Still nothing. That's when I noticed something strange. On the bark of a nearby tree, there was a trail, not of ants, but a faint, oily residue, almost like fingerprints. But they weren't smudges. They formed a pattern, a series of tiny, glistening dots, like code. Morse, pheromone marker, some kind of insect graffiti? I couldn't tell. But I took pictures. I knew I had to. Because whatever had been here, whatever had commanded that swarm, had left a message. And I wasn't sure who it was meant for. Later that week, I shared a frame of the mystery creature on an online entomology forum. Just one image. No context. Within hours, replies poured in. Some said it was a mantid nymph. Others claimed it was an assassin bug. But the most common response, "I've never seen that before." Then came a message, anonymous, no profile pic, no username. Just 5 words. "You weren't supposed to see." That's when I closed the laptop. I started going deeper into obscure journals and research papers. The kind buried behind paywalls and dusty corners of the internet. There was a recurring theme, inexplicable swarm behavior. Whole ant colonies that suddenly turned aggressive and vanished. Entire ecosystems thrown into imbalance without explanation. In one case, an entomologist in Brazil had documented a rogue ant species that behaved unlike any other, launching preemptive attacks, adapting strategies overnight, refusing to follow known pheromone trails. The scientist vanished mid-expedition. His last journal entry read, "They aren't just learning. They're watching us." No one ever published his findings. I started to wonder, was I experiencing the same thing? And then came the final moment. The moment I still can't shake. I was rewatching the footage late one night, hoping to notice something new. A reflection, a movement, anything. But something was off. The video was playing slower than I remembered. The frame count didn't match. I thought maybe it was a glitch, until I scrubbed to the moment of the ant retreat. In that frame, for one split second, the figure in the background tilts its head. It doesn't walk, doesn't climb. It just tilts, slightly, as if listening. And in the same frame, the ants all pause. Frozen. It's not fear. It's not panic. It's attention. Like soldiers waiting for the next order. Then the figure shifts, barely, and the ants begin to move again. Some scatter. Others regroup. A few begin to bury the dead. And just before the shot cuts, the figure turns toward the camera, right at me. Not the lens. Me. It knew I was watching. I haven't gone back to that spot since. People tell me I imagined it, that I edited the video subconsciously, that ants fight all the time, and I just happened to be there at the right or wrong moment. Maybe they're right, but maybe something else was happening, something we're not supposed to see, something hiding in plain sight. What if ants aren't just acting on instinct? What if they're being guided, manipulated, or worse, led by something older than we understand, smaller than we notice, and far, far smarter than we ever thought possible? You've heard of birds aren't real, right? That's child's play. The next time you see a line of ants, just ask yourself, who are they following? And why are they always watching?